Hello everyone, I'm Tyler and I did my project on visual versus verbal thinking. So, just a brief overview of this. Everyone thinks in different ways, and so learning about this is a critical piece of our understanding of consciousness as a whole, specifically because it can help us break down that subjective nature that we keep coming across in class. So, to work on improving our understanding of this, I conducted a survey that focuses on how people process information, in particular, two main categories of thinking that people fall into, and then looking for correlations in this data. So, the two main categories of thinking are visual and verbal. So, visual thinking primarily entails like pictures, and it's somewhat similar to watching a movie, is what I've seen it described as. And then verbal thinking, which is what I am, is like having a voice in your head, basically talking to yourself, and that's usually structured in words and sentences. So that was the first thing that I looked for in my survey. I asked people if they thought they were a visual, a linguistic thinker, or if they were both. So, surprisingly to me at least, most people are visual thinkers, and then there was also a large number of people who said both. So, the first thing that I looked at for a correlation was if it's related to gender at all. So, I asked people what their sex was when they were born and compared that to their responses to what kind of thinker they were. And as far as I could tell, there was no evidence that gender had any impact on how a person thinks. I also asked people what their dominant hand was, as a sort of way to look at like left brain, right brain. It's not perfect, but it was the easiest thing to do in the survey. So unfortunately, most of the people who took my survey were right-handed, and this resulted in me not necessarily getting a lot of data from ambidextrous people or left-handed people. But the data that I did get kind of had an interesting correlation going on. So from the left-handed people, four of the five were visual, and the last one was both. And he was a kind of a special case because he was my brother, and we'll get to that later on. But I would have expected him to be linguistic, sorry. And then from ambidextrous, it also seems like there might be a higher tendency to answer both. But again, I would need much more data in both of these categories before I could pursue and suggest a link between these things. But by far the most interesting relationship that I noticed was in families. So, in particular, siblings never had opposing methods of thought or processing information. So, what I mean by that is like the siblings would either all be linguistic or be some mix of linguistic or both, or they would all be visual or maybe some visual and some both. But I didn't ever encounter a family where there was both a linguistic sibling and a visual sibling, which, based on the fact that I analyzed 7 families in this survey, I found to be extremely interesting. And then I also noticed that usually the father shares the trait that the kids have. And so there could be some sort of either genetic or like coming out of the upbringing type of reason that develops how people think. And so kind of gives some insight into that. Not entirely, of course, certain that this is the case because I only had 100 some people in the survey, but it's definitely interesting to think about, and I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit about it, and I expect to keep going forward and trying to learn more as I can. So if you want to answer in the comments below, say like which one are you, and if you have any other thoughts on the matter, that would be great. Thanks for watching.